In 2022, two American companies flipped a switch. And overnight, an entire country was cut off from its own money. That country was Russia. And every other government on Earth watched it happen, thinking the exact same thing. That could be us. Because Visa and Mastercard don't just run the cards in your wallet. They quietly tax almost every swipe on the planet. And now, one by one, the biggest economies in the world are trying to break free. So here's the question I want to answer. How did two companies end up sitting on top of $24 trillion of the world's money? And how does a country escape them? Stay with me, because the escape is already happening, faster than almost anyone expected. Let me start with the switch, because the switch is what changed everything. The day the cards died, when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, the West reached for sanctions, and one of the sharpest turned out to be something most people had never thought of as a weapon: payments. Within days, both Visa and Mastercard suspended their operations inside Russia. And here's what that actually meant. A Russian card issued by a Russian bank stopped working the moment it touched the outside world. Buy something from a foreign website. Declined. Tap your phone abroad. Declined. The global financial network simply stopped recognizing you. Now here's the part that matters. Inside Russia, cards mostly kept working, not because Visa and Mastercard were kind, but because years earlier, after the first round of sanctions in 2014, Russia had quietly built its own domestic payment system, its own rails. So when the American companies pulled out, there was still something underneath to catch the fall. Sit with that for a second. The countries that had built their own system survived the switch. The ones that hadn't would have been sent straight back to cash and chaos. And every finance minister on Earth did the math in about 5 seconds. If a foreign company can turn off my economy's cards from an office in another country, then I don't actually control my own money. I'm renting it. That's the fear that started all of this. But to understand why it's such a big deal, you have to see what these two companies actually are. The toll nobody voted for. Here's the thing almost nobody understands about Visa and Mastercard. They are not banks. They don't give you the card. They don't lend you the money. They don't hold your account. Your bank does all of that. What Visa and Mastercard own is the road, the rails the money travels down. And every single time money moves along that road, every swipe, every tap, every online checkout, they take a tiny cut. One swipe, it's nothing, a few cents, but run that across the entire planet, and it becomes one of the greatest businesses in human history. Between them, Visa and Mastercard move roughly $24 trillion a year. In its 2025 financial year, Visa alone pulled in about $40 billion in revenue. Mastercard nearly $33 billion. For running the road. And here's what makes people angry. They keep raising the toll. Across the last few years, the two networks have pushed up a whole range of swipe and cross-border fees. By some estimates, more than 40% since the pandemic. It's effectively a private tax on the global economy. A tax nobody voted for, collected by two companies in one country, paid by everyone else. For a long time, the world just accepted that. It was the cost of doing business. But therefore, once you realize you're paying a foreign tax on your own economy, one question becomes impossible to ignore. Who controls the road? The sovereignty problem. Let's go to Europe, because Europe is where this fear got loudest. Look at the Eurozone, and the numbers are genuinely startling. In roughly 13 of the 21 Eurozone countries, there is no domestic card scheme at all, none, which means every single card payment in those countries runs on Visa or Mastercard. American brands handle the clear majority of card transactions across the Euro area. Now think about what rides along with each of those payments. Not just the money, the data. Who bought what, where, and when. Every tap sends a little record of European life out through American-owned infrastructure. And in a crisis, the country on the receiving end doesn't hold the off switch. Someone else does. The head of the European Central Bank, Christine Lagarde, said it plainly. Europe needs its own payment system, and it needs it urgently. The ECB started warning that depending this heavily on foreign rails is a strategic weakness, right alongside depending on foreign energy. And European politicians started reaching for a phrase that tells you exactly how big they think this is. They started calling for an Airbus of payments, a shared European champion built to break the American duopoly, the same way Europe once built a plane maker to break Boeings. So that's the problem laid bare. Now here's how the world is actually fighting back, and this is where it gets fast. Everybody is building an exit. Here's what almost nobody realizes. Some countries already escaped, and you may have watched them do it. Brazil built Pix. India built UPI. China built its own giant mobile payment rails. Russia, as we saw, built Mir. Each one is domestic, instant, and either dirt cheap or free. Money moving straight from one bank account to another. No card network in the middle taking a cut. And in each of those countries, those systems didn't just launch. They took over. They pushed the cards aside. So the blueprint exists, and now the rich world is copying it. Europe is the big one. It's building a wallet called Wero, backed by 16 major banks, already past 50 million users, letting people send money with just a phone number in seconds, for free. On its own, Wero is one country's answer. But in February 2026, it linked arms with an alliance of other national systems, Spain's, Italy's, Portugal's, the Nordics, into a single network reaching around 130 million people across 13 countries. In one signature, a continent's worth of separate systems became one rail that doesn't touch an American network at all. On top of that, the European Parliament voted to move ahead with a digital euro, public money, issued by the central bank in digital form. And it's not just Europe. In February 2026, the United Kingdom's biggest banks, Barclays, Lloyds, NatWest, and others, sat down with the Bank of England to start building a domestic backup rail of their own. Because in Britain, around 95% of card payments run on Visa or Mastercard, and after watching Russia, that number suddenly looked less like convenience and more like a loaded gun. And further out, the BRICS group of nations is openly exploring a shared system to route around Western rails entirely. Here's the thing tying all of it together. This was already happening slowly. Then trade tensions with the United States flared up again, and every one of these projects hit the accelerator at once. Nothing motivates a country to build its own off switch like realizing someone else is holding theirs. But before you decide this is a done deal, let me give you the other side, because it's a strong one. The case for calm. Is the fear actually overblown? A lot of serious people think so. And a good look at this has to sit with that. Start with the obvious. The United States has never actually switched off an allied economy. Russia was an adversary in the middle of an invasion, not a normal trading partner. Through years of tariffs and trade wars between allies, Visa and Mastercard kept running without a hiccup. So the nightmare scenario, the critics say, is a fear of something that has never happened to a friend. Then there's the value. These two networks are genuinely, quietly brilliant at what they do. You can land in almost any country on Earth, and your card just works, instantly, with fraud protection, with your money back if something goes wrong. The new account-to-account systems are fast and cheap, but most of them still can't match that seamless global reach, or the consumer protections cards bake in. And critics make a sharper point. A lot of this sovereignty talk, they argue, is really just protectionism in a nicer suit, a way to shove out efficient American companies and prop up homegrown ones. They'll note that Europe already caps card fees by law, and that the layer everyone panics about, the actual processing of payments, is largely run by European firms anyway. And here's the twist that makes this a real fight and not a foregone conclusion. The incumbents are not sitting still. Mastercard just spent up to $1.8 billion buying into stablecoin infrastructure, the digital money rails of the future. Visa's running well over 160 crypto-linked card programs. They are quietly rebuilding themselves under the hood so that whatever the next system is, the money still flows through them. Displacing a network that billions of people already trust, that every merchant already accepts, that is brutally, brutally hard. Many have tried. Almost all have failed. So this is not a sure thing. It's a genuine contest. Let's zoom out. But step back, and here's what's really changed. And it's bigger than any one wallet or app. For decades, the world treated Visa and Mastercard the way you treat the pipes in your walls. Neutral. Invisible. Just plumbing that carries the water. Nobody asked who owned the pipes, because it never seemed to matter. 2022 ended that illusion in a single weekend. The pipes, it turned out, had an owner. And that owner could shut off the tap. So now, all over the world, payments are being moved into a new category. They're not treated as a convenience anymore. They're treated as national infrastructure, as strategic as an electrical grid, as a fuel supply, as an army. Something a serious country builds for itself and controls, because it cannot afford not to. The cards in your wallet were never really just cards. They were infrastructure, owned by someone else. And the world just decided all at once that it wants to own its own. So here's the question I'll leave you with. In your country, every time you tap to pay, whose road are you actually driving on? And what happens on the day they decide to close it?